Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. How are you this morning? Hello, hello. How are you doing today on this Wednesday? Hope you're doing great. There's goodness in your day. See who comes along here. Hey, Irene, what are you doing out on a Wednesday? It's the no restore today. I hope you're doing good. Hey, Allie, how are you this morning? Hope your day's going well too. Hope that keep hoping it's going to warm up, but I don't think it's going to. Good morning, friends. How are you? How are you? How are you? Hello. Living the dream. Ain't we all? Yeah. Good morning. How's recovering for carpal tunnel? I hope you're healing well, Irene. That's a lot. That Good morning. So tonight, just as a reminder, we have our Lenten series coming up. We'll be hosting right here at 6 o'clock to come hear Reverend Don Bliss's taking on of our next chapter of the Book of Lamentations. Last week, you had to tolerate my little study up there in beautiful East Freetown, Calvary Pentecostal Church. And this week we'll be hosting. So we have soup and bread and simple meal starting at 6, and then our worship starts at 6:45, and then our teaching starts at 7, and we will be done at 8. So if you're at all interested in coming to have a little fellowship tonight, to have some and to deepen your understanding of the Book of Lamentations. It's been a fun. It was fun for me to dig in last week and contend with that. If you've never been to one of these, it's a little different than our usual fare around. It's not just a Bible study, but it's a real teaching around what the Book of Lamentations has to say to us in this era. So, good morning. Hey, Yvette, good to see you. Donna, good morning to you. You're still on my heart. Hope you're doing great. All right, friends, let's get going this morning. It is the 18th day of March. We're over halfway through March, friends. It is the 18th day of March at this 11:11, and I'm glad you're here and a part of this journey. You know, the Bible has a lot to say about humility. Bible has a lot to say about the practice of being humble, and I want to talk today about this notion of humility because I think we sometimes don't understand what the real call to is, that that we shouldn't just be all puffed up with ourselves. That's a legitimate thing, but really it's a deeper. It is that humility actually is a practice that it calls us to do. Um, you've heard me talk many times about hope, and the way that hope is not something we have. We think of it as a commodity, and I think we do this with humility too. We think that we commoditize our humility. Like, oh, I'll be, I'm going, we're going to be humble now, or we have to have some humility, right? You've heard that kind of phrase. Like hope, humility isn't for the having; it's for the doing. That it is a spiritual practice, that hoping is a spiritual practice, and that the act of humility is a practice that we take up, just like prayer, just like other things. And we take them up not just because we do them because God tells us to and we better be good, but we do them because they're designed to take us somewhere. They're designed to give us our Father in heaven, who wants to give us all good gifts. This is one of the ways that we can receive these good gifts. if you're looking for a package from Amazon, it's helpful if you're standing by the door or by the mailbox, rather than hiding in your closet. These are practices. If we're looking for a package, if we're looking to be delivered something good, it's good to be in the place in which that delivery comes. And that humility, the practice of humility, is that state of being in that ability to receive good things. Or the opposite of which, that taking us out of humility puts us in that state where we become unhelpable in some ways and unable to receive those good gifts. So this comes from Ephesians 4. So the book of Ephesus, this is Paul's letter to the church in Ephesus. And this is an interesting thing. He has a number of things to teach the church in Ephesus, but this idea that he should kind of lean on them about humility is really important, because Ephesus is this kind of glitterati place in the ancient world. It's this place where it's like the head of the banking cartel and the pharmaceutical industry and all manner of other, and also at the crossroads of all these different people and worlds. And so it is, Ephesus is just the steak and lobster place. It's where other than kind of Rome, and there's some other places that are really rich, but even Rome is this big capital city, has all kinds of stuff going on, and yes, there are elites there, but Ephesus is really upscale in the ancient world. And so, you can think that those who kind of have it all together and have all the things, to have all the stuff, and that they're called to this invitation to humility, well, you can see how it might be something that Paul needs to address. And so this is the beginning of the fourth chapter of Paul's letter to the church in Ephesus. As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. That there is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, and one Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. This invitation to humility that Paul gives to the church in Ephesus is really our invitation to, as Julian Chividian has to say, I really enjoy his stuff in so many ways. He says it this way: there's no better place than the bathroom floor. And he says that this sense of that this state of having been our ego bruised or battered or pushed down enough so that we actually end up in this place of receptivity to God. And that's not that we all need to be beat up, but it is to say that there is that the right, what Paul is driving at is this right order of relationship between the created order of things. That there is a God and we ain't it. And that entering into that knowledge is us entering into the practice of humility, is behaving in that way, is acting as if we're not God, acting as if we are not in charge of all the planets, acting as if we are in these ways. And so, and there's fruit in this. There's fruit in understanding that every person we meet has as much of a voice, of a place, of a use, of a richness as every one of us does in this world. And so a few things I want to share with you this morning around this is that, so the first thing about the bathroom floor is that humility, combined with these other things that he's talking about, patience and gentility and all this sort of thing, that what they build in us is temperance and moderation. That's the virtue that humility brings us. That knowing you are a human being with human tendencies and with human capabilities, not godlike capabilities, not capacities that you do not contain or possess. My wife Chris has this way of saying that when we're driving and she sees somebody texting while they're driving, and she has a phrase that she says, they're not as good at that as they think they are. Which is this kind of, lovely little way of saying, they're actually endangering everybody on the road, but they think they can do it. They think they can handle it. They're not realizing they still only have two eyes, two abilities, and all of and all of that we all kind of end up contending with. That we don't recognize the capacities, like, oh, I can drink all the cocktails, or I can take all the cocaine because I won't get addicted to it. I can do all the things that I can, I can disobey the kind of the moral law because I won't be damaged by it, or I won't be damaging people by it. These ways that often physically we're a little more attentive to. We understand that if we jump off the top of the building, that we're going to have some deceleration trauma when we hit the sidewalk. That we understand that, and so we will have a little humility around that sometimes, or most of us anyway. But this way of saying, this way of entering into humility as a way of giving us the gift of temperance. Because it will put us in right relationship with other people. It will put us in right relationship with the one who made us. It will help modulate our capacities. That maybe we do need a Snickers bar and a nap. That maybe we do before we take on a difficult task or an emotionally charged thing. Maybe we do need to have some gentleness with ourselves and some grace with ourselves. Maybe we do have to be good stewards of the 24 hours that God has given us, recognizing that we can't actually work 22 of them and still expect to maintain relationships and love and all the things that the world has in store for us. So the second thing is, not only will it bring us temperance, but that humility actually brings us better relationships. You don't think about this, but the practice of humility, the practice is that it cultivates the right people in our life. Because people who are prideful and people who are like full of themselves and like want to do all, who are actually kind of turned off by folks who are generally humble. And that folks who are, and even folks who are kind of ego bound, there's a way in which humility becomes this kind of like this little kind of repellent to folks that to those who would either be competitors to us, they'd be kind of to get us in that ego thing, or that would be vampires that would just kind of latch on and kind of suck all the resources out of us, like you met those people too. But there's this way in which another of the gifts of the practice of humility, of like, okay, I'm a human being with human capacities to love both and that I need to both extend forgiveness to the world and extend forgiveness to myself. I am destined for the bathroom floor occasionally, and that place is the place of receptivity from God with God, but one of the ideas of when we practice that, what we actually end up with is human connection. That we end up with human connection. That cultivating humanity cultivates good relationships with people. That humble people listen to connect. Prideful people listen to respond, to compete, or to draw resources. And that it's simply what happens. It is one of our core capacities. And that injunction in this where Paul talks about, he says, keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. Now he's just not talking about the group. He's talking about keep the unity of the Spirit, the sense of like keep your connection with God and understanding that God is God and you're not, and that you have capacity, you have basic capacities that you're probably, no matter what it is, you're probably not as good as you think you are. And that's not saying that you're bad at things, or to say that you're to insult you or to put you down, but it is to say that even if you're the best in the world, you're still a human being. Even if you're Novak Djokovic in terms of tennis, you're still going to age out eventually someday, maybe when he's like 70. That at some point there's always these capacities that are going to be less than, that our capacities are always finite and always human. and that in that and that we that and that that that's not a bug, that's not a thing to be overcome, that is actually to be embraced. Because when we embrace him, because the other thing is then we can start banging against the edges of them. Then once we understand we are finite, then we actually begin to engage the infinite. And we begin to be filled up with all manner of good things. We begin to be filled up that we can actually have an honest relationship with the one Lord and one faith and one baptism and one God and one Father who is over all and through all and in all and wants to bring us all good gifts. So I want to invite you today to take up humility, not because you're a prideful and horrible person, not because God says so, not because you need to be shamed, but to take it up because there are gifts in it, and there's beauty in it, and there's promise in it, and that to take it not as a thing that you need to have or you don't have, but take it as a practice. That when I go into this meeting, when I meet with this person, when I care for my daughter, my granddaughter, my son, my grandson, when I go this, I'm gonna engage them not as an overlord, but I'm gonna engage them as one who loves them, and to see and to discover what they have to say. But I'm gonna make my way. See, the beautiful thing about the bathroom floor. The beautiful thing about the bathroom floor is that if we willingly place ourselves on the bathroom floor, there is always this way in which we are raised up. But if we are driven to the bathroom floor, it's always this place it becomes a place of stripping away and desperation. Friends, my hope is that you'll take up the practice of humility over these days, not because you need to, not because you're a bad person, not because God told you to, but because there are gifts in it for you. There's beauty in it, and there's wonders in it. And the things that you will give up are actually all the things that are holding you back. Peace and grace to you all, my friends, and we'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.